Hello, and welcome to episode 44 of Peace Matters, a podcast on contemporary geopolitics and international relations. My name is George Doka. I'm the project coordinator at the International Institute for Peace. In this episode, we will discuss the official opening of the first cluster of the EU accession of both Ukraine and Moldova. However, we will focus mostly on Ukraine. What does that mean for Ukrainian law? And also, given that it's currently going under war, is the EU truly ready to get Ukraine be part of its peace project? This and more will be discussed in this episode. I'll be having this conversation with two very special guests. Anastasiia Hraur, she is a PhD researcher in political science at the Andrássy University in Budapest, and also Stepan Rusyn. He is a coordinator at the German-Ukrainian Partnership Program at the Transatlantic Center Dialogue. Stepan, Anastasiia, thank you so much for joining me today here at the IIP. We're going to have a very interesting conversation. I'm very sure of that. We're going to be speaking about something that happened quite recently to two of our European partner countries, that is of Ukraine and Moldova. Both of them opened the first cluster in terms of their EU accession just recently, I believe in June 15th of 2026, this year that is. And I want to already jump the gun and start the conversation, that is, by asking you, what has changed to make this happen? The European Union has showed quite much of a hesitancy, especially in terms of Ukraine, for it to kind of develop in terms of its EU accession. However, somehow, at this point in time, Ukraine got momentum. Why is that? Stepan, first you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, the main factor is the change of government in Hungary, of course. From the tactical point of view, Ukraine was ready to open the first cluster already in September last year when the screening process was completed. But then that was the government of Hungary that was blocking the process. Still, the government has changed. And when the new Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, came, there was a process of negotiations between Ukrainian and Hungarians on the issue of Hungarian minority in Ukraine, and based on the agreement that both parties reached very quickly, the Hungarian government lifted the veto, and we managed to continue. And I guess that's the main thing. And of course, another factor that we have to consider is that starting from, I would say, winter this year, or even earlier, the membership of Ukraine in the EU was also as part of US-Russia-Ukraine negotiations and was considered as one of security guarantees for it. Therefore, there had to be some progress shown there, also to showcase that Europe is an agent capable of also delivering on that track, I would say.
And Anastasiia, do you have anything to add to that explanation?
Yes, maybe a little bit, because I have the same opinion because of the Hungary that changed the government and they lifted now the veto. But also, I think that the main point, it's about geopolitical survival condition. Because early, maybe European Union, they were thinking that is Ukraine ready to be with us? And now I see that they changed their rhetoric maybe to, if we can effort to not to have Ukraine. And it means that Ukraine now, I don't want to say like a great place, but at the same time, it's like the country which stopped Russia before the war, before the European Union. And I think it's also like survival plan for them to think about more, to have Ukraine in the European Union.
It's very interesting that you guys already brought up Hungary being a very much so main actor. And also the rhetoric that you just mentioned in terms of it being a means of geopolitical survival. You said that a lot with, for example, the Western Balkans countries. Their accession process in terms of joining the EU has been very much so linked with the Russian invasion. I was curious whether or not that has to do as well with what you were mentioning before of it being part of Europe's geopolitical survival. Would you agree with that sentiment that sort of that the Western Balkans possibly joining the European Union has a lot to do with what's currently happening in Ukraine? That's a rhetoric that I've been hearing a lot about. Either one of you?
The full-scale invasion of Ukraine obviously gave the impetus to the enlargement discussion in general. And I guess in European capitals, in Brussels as well, there is understanding that now in the increasingly multipolar and transactional world, you have to be strong to get good conditions in trade or in political debates with other big actors. So all of the European countries, they are in the best case middle powers, and they don't have that leverage when talking to the US or to China or to Russia even. And for Europe to be self-sufficient, it has to be big. And through enlargement, it can be achieved. With Ukraine, it's quite an obvious case of Ukraine's military power currently that can be a big asset. But with the Balkans as well, this will diminish the possibility of third actors to influence European politics if those countries are anchored in the EU, share all the values, and are part of this union. And that, in the end, will strengthen all.
And there's also this growing sentiment, mostly from Europe itself, of why should Ukraine continue to pursue its membership in the EU when it obviously has the war happening? Do you have any sort of response to that sentiment?
So,
you can answer.
We cannot lose time and wait till the war is over and then starting the EU accession. It has to run in parallel, and Ukrainian authorities, the government, the society, they all support this approach. And the progress throughout the past 4 years shows that it's realistic. Like the Ukrainian government delivered on the promises as regards the steps to open the clusters. So all the technical part on the Ukrainian side was done in time. And there is obviously a wish to do it as quickly as possible, because the membership in the European Union also means that this country is more safe for investments, for economical cooperation, and that's vital for Ukraine's post-war reconstruction. So the sooner it happens, the better it's for the speed of the reconstruction of Ukraine. And for Ukrainians, it makes perfect sense that we can do both.
And would you say that the EU membership thus kind of guarantees Ukraine that security guarantee, or would you say that NATO would be a better alternative to that?
So I think it's really a good question, because we have a lot of debates about that Ukraine should be with NATO and with European Union. I think yes, but at the same time, I think that Ukraine can bring more and a lot of knowledge to European Union and NATO, because we already in the war condition very long, since 2014, and it means that our country, the Ukraine, they are that they have already experience in different battlefield war, like drones, missiles, and our engineer, they develop different equipment, and I think that our experience can something bring new to NATO. And I think at the same time that European Union and NATO, they need more improvement and development. And at the same time, Ukraine, it's like the young country, and we can bring our young experience to I don't want to say to old European Union, but to this union which a little bit stayed somewhere, and they don't have not any possibility to improve themselves, but they are staying now in one position and they don't move. And I think that now, for example, Ukraine can push this moving with different experience in different area. So it's not just only about the military stuff. It's also about resources. It's also about economy. It can be also agriculture. So we will discuss, I think, it a little bit later. But it's also like the main point what we can bring. And I think that yes.
Yeah, it's almost as if the balance has shifted, or rather the tides. It's no longer what can the European Union provide to Ukraine, it's also what can Ukraine provide to the European Union. I think it takes pressure for such a country to actually develop in the way that it has. And I appreciate the fact that you only not mentioned the military side, but also the cyber space and how much that's developed in Ukraine as well. However, I have a question. So we're in the scenario where Ukraine joins the European Union. What happens with the already annexed portions of Ukraine? Would therefore, under international law, or rather under European law, would those territories be recognized as European, as part of the European Union, or rather would it be not? Because the EU, for example, has consistently showed support for the already occupied regions and has therefore already always recognized them as part of Ukraine. What happens if Ukraine joins the EU? Would they have the same benefits that the unoccupied regions of Ukraine would?
I guess in our case it's a bit specific, and the only similar precedent is with Cyprus, where Cyprus is the member of the EU, and formally all of the territory of Cyprus is a member of the EU, but the EU acquis, they are implemented only on the territories that the Republic of Cyprus controls. Although the Turkish part of Cyprus, their citizens are also considered EU citizens. So I guess it shows already the precedent that there may be countries, EU members, that do not control all of their territory. And with Turkey, it's maybe a bit more simple case, because Turkey is a member of NATO, Greece is a member of NATO, Turkey and Cyprus both were trying to become EU members, and at that time when Cyprus joined the EU, there was a referendum on the unification of Cyprus. So it will be more difficult in Ukraine's case, and I guess when there is a ceasefire or a durable peace agreement that will indicate that part of the Ukrainian territory remains occupied, although I'm pretty sure neither Ukrainian government nor the European governments will ever recognize those occupied territories as part of Russia. When there is a line of contact and when there is a clear territory that the Ukrainian government will control, I guess it can go in a similar direction as it is with Cyprus.
And I'm also thinking about, I was just in Cyprus recently, the fact that whenever I crossed the Turkish side, a lot of the, for example, data roaming was not available to me, and amongst other stuff. And I want to kind of seek an explanation from either one of you, perhaps you, Anastasiia, in terms of how important for Ukraine was it that the EU data roaming became accessible to first Moldova and Ukraine compared to other candidate member countries. Would that have to do with perhaps how technologically developed Ukraine has become, or does it have any other relevance, would you think?
I think that about Moldova and Ukraine, it's an interesting case because Moldova, they started enrollment earlier than Ukraine. And at the same time, they have also Transnistria that it doesn't recognize. But at the same time, I checked the statistic that this territory has now more export than Moldova to European Union. It's approximately 71% from Transnistria, and at the same time, Moldova 68%. And for me, it was really very interesting how it works, because like Moldova, they are trying, they improve their law legislation, they are doing everything to be a part of European Union, and at the same time, now they are stopped because of the Ukraine, and I think that they feel attached to the Ukraine, because if Ukraine, how I know, it's also the protest that if they have in the enrollment process in two countries, it means that they will go together.
Are they in a package deal? Because I'm
Yes.
still not so sure. Yes, they are.
Yeah, and this,
now.
yes,
As of now.
and at the same time, it's a really interesting case because how long Moldova should wait until Ukraine will have some improvement in different area. But at the same time, how long Ukraine should wait that Moldova will improve or develop it also in different area. And I think that all these countries, they should be separately moving into the European Union. But we will see how it will be developed, because now I see the concept that Moldova is still waiting for Ukraine.
But would you say then that Ukraine is also waiting on Moldova on
Yeah.
a lot of regards? But in terms of, I have a couple of questions regarding that. But in terms of Ukraine, and I would like both of your guys' opinion on this, except for obviously what's happening in terms of wartime conditions, what is the next biggest obstacle to Ukraine possibly joining the EU soon? I'm thinking, for example, about the recent resistance protests that happened in Ukraine in terms of its corruption. Would that be the next biggest obstacle, in your guys' opinion?
That's not that recent, like it was July last year. And after that, the Ukrainian government reverted those changes, and there was this 10-point Kachka cost plan agreed that Ukraine will have to deliver on 10 points to show that like this was a single case that will not repeat itself, and that Ukraine takes seriously fights against corruption. And the Ukrainian government, at least what the official position is taking it seriously and plans to implement that plan till the end of this year. So we'll see, like whether we'll in fact be able to deliver it. As of now, Ukrainian civil society is a bit of skeptical. First of all, because of the tempo, because already half of the year has passed and not that much happened. But well, we'll see. We still have half a year. I guess maybe another remaining obstacle is that only one of 6 clusters has been opened, and it's not clear when the next 5 will be open to start the formal process. And it's also tied now to Hungarian position, also position of some Western European countries that don't want to, as Ukrainians say, push the horses to do it very quickly. So that there is expectations that on 14th of July there will be opening of either 2 or all of the 5 clusters. We'll see. And after that it will be more or less merit-based approach. What Ukraine will deliver, then it has to be assessed by the European Commission and member states.
Yeah, and to already jump from that, then what do you guys think about the idea of an accelerated accession process? Anastasiia?
What do you mean exactly?
So Zelensky, from my understanding that has been very much an advocate for Ukraine to join the EU as soon as possible. There were also talks behind the scenes in terms of the opening of the first cluster for all of the clusters to be opened simultaneously. However, that's not necessarily been the case because, as Stepan mentioned, it's this sentiment of it's not necessarily fair to the rest of the candidate member countries. And my question has to do with whether or not you see accelerated accession as a potential option for Ukraine to join the EU, or do you think it's not possible?
I think it's possible, but at the same time, I can say it's like 50-50 process. Why? Because we have like this strong willing of our people to be a part of European Union, and at the same time about this law in 2025, everything's changed because of people, but because of the society, and also because of European Union pressure. And then in 9 days, they change everything. And I think that here is just only maybe one problem. What we have now, it's our some people in the presidential office that they undermine maybe some they are willing, because they would like to, not to support, but they would like to secure their position or their interest. But at the same time, I can say that it's everywhere, in all countries. And we can see this also in the European Union. And I can say that it doesn't exist any country where is everything good and everything nice and everybody working very good. But I think that for Ukraine it's possible to push all this cluster because we improved already our legislation, and I checked also some information that Marta Kos, she said that we already did 12 of the 15 mark bunches. And it means that we have already our improvement in our legislation process. And for Ukraine, it's like a big step so it's a big step for enrollment into European Union. And we have everything what we need. I think that we just need to get this green flag that yes, now we can accept you. But at the same time, we have a war. But we can be a member of European Union and still be in the war condition. I think that European Union will not stop the war. Just only Ukraine can stop it. How we are doing this all for years. And we have already this possibility to be a part. Just push maybe, just we need now to push a little bit European Union. This is my thought about, not about European Union, but in the whole Europe. Ukraine is already the Europe. And we don't need to prove, because we paid already a huge price to being a member in European Union.
May I jump in on the accelerating part? I guess in comparison to Western Balkans, we are going really accelerated way. Like their negotiations have been taking place already, like some cases more than 10 years. We have made quite a big progress over the past 4 years. So it's already accelerated. The plan A of the Ukrainian government, as Zelensky put it, is to sign the accession treaty next year. And, well...
Would you say that's realistic?
No. But that's plan A, and Ukraine always puts maximalistic goals, and there were already many cases when our partner said that no, it's not possible, and then in the end it was possible. I'm not sure that this is also the case with this one, but here we see that this tactics also works, as the German Chancellor came up with this idea of associated membership, which also can be seen from this perspective of accelerating and bringing Ukraine closer, even though it is not a full member yet.
And speaking of, President Zelensky, from my understanding, has not necessarily been much of a fan of this phased integration. There's a sort of like hierarchy of a full member state of the EU and someone taking the back seat, or a country taking the back seat, which in this case would be Ukraine. Would you say that that is more likely to happen rather than just for Ukraine to join the EU as a full member? And would you say that that would nonetheless be convenient for Ukraine to take as an opportunity?
You mean the kind of integration in the EU structures without the right of vote?
Yes.
Well, it's not acceptable for Zelensky, and I guess it's not acceptable for Ukrainians, because they feel that every day they are suffering and they are fighting for the values from the Article 2 of the Lisbon Treaty. And it's not very fair that like we, going through all of this, won't have a right of vote on Europe's affairs. And the Zelensky's message is that we have to get something tangible. Like in case with this associate membership, it's more symbolic that Ukrainians are present at some meetings without the right to vote, but still their thoughts will be considered. While Ukrainians would like to see something tangible, like as we had the case of data roaming, something that every Ukrainian can feel, the eased export of Ukrainian goods to Europe, access to single market. Those are more tangible things that in theory can be achieved before Ukraine becomes a full member. And I guess the discussion in the next months will go in that direction. What is the tangible things that Europe can offer to Ukraine, so that to support Ukraine and show its citizens that this way is not in vain and you can get something from the EU integration already. And also to prepare Europeans themselves. They will see that, well, maybe European goods are not that bad and maybe they are not that dangerous for our markets.
Yeah. What would the impact be on Ukrainian agriculture if, or rather when, Ukraine joins the European Union. There's a lot of talks regarding some of the EU member states sort of feeling threatened because of Ukraine's very much so superpower in terms of its agriculture. Anastasiia, could you perhaps speak on that?
I think it can be possible that we will have a conflict, but at the same time, it's possible to solve just because of the good project management. That's all. I think that Hungary, Romania, France, they have really very strong and good agriculture, but at the same time, they can good exist in the European Union. At the same time, if we add Ukraine, we can cooperate. This is everything what we need, just cooperation and good project management. Nobody want to sit here and get this chair to be like the first one and to have this hegemony and just to say only we can solve agriculture problem in the world. No, we can just cooperate. And this is everything what I want to say about this possible conflict. Mm-hmm. Everything is possible for solving.
And in terms of from your expertise or your knowledge rather, there's also been a recent dispute between Slovakia and Ukraine in terms of its oil dispute in the Druzhba pipeline. What does that sort of have to do with Ukrainians taking a seat at the table in the European Parliament?
This one, complicated question. I mean, worrying question, I can say so, because in Slovakia they have now pro-Russian government, and I think it's also the problem of European Union that they don't hear this country, Slovakia, what they want, and because of that, they have now pro-Russian government. Now we can just maybe wait because we can't solve and we can't change the government in the European Union. I mean, in Slovakia, but at the same time, it's possible, and maybe we can try to communicate how it was with Czech Republic also, because Andrej Babiš, he said that he will not give possibility for European Union to get this support loan to Ukraine, but at the same time he said we support, because his speech, it was about, or his rhetoric, it was about that I don't want that Czech people will pay from their taxes to Ukraine. And he also tried to support his nation, but at the same time, we just need to try to speak how we can solve this problem, or what they can give us, or how we can help them to solve their problems and at the same time solve our problem with accession, for example, to European Union.
So would you say then the biggest problem behind these disputes within the European Union is sort of the communication between the member states and on how they perceive this as a threat to their region?
Yeah, because in European Union they have a lot of agreements, a lot of different documents, round maps, but it doesn't work because it exists. But this exists in the theoretical part, but not in the real world. And because of that, they have this conflict between all these countries. And I think that here is a problem in project management and at the same time in the communication. Mm-hmm. It's possible to solve, but yes, it's hard. Because, for example, if you ask me how we can solve now, I need to think, because it's not super easy. You have a lot of different opinions, you have a lot of different attitudes from different countries, and now you need to find something common. We need to have a time to solve this.
And Stepan, could you speak on perhaps the Polish side as well? I mean, Poland and Ukraine have they've been butting heads for quite some time now, obviously due to historical grievances. However, could you speak on the current situation, on the relations between Poland and Ukraine?
Yes, there is overall understanding that we both are in the same boat. We both share the same threats. Poland is Ukraine's, I guess, second biggest trade partner. So Ukrainians are contributing a lot to the Polish economy. Poland has supported us, especially in 2021, in very considerable manner. So there is a lot of things that unite us, and now after the last weeks of quite heated debates, mostly between our presidents, I hope like the situation will improve. Like yesterday, the Ukraine Recovery Conference started in Gdansk. It's Poland who hosted it, and the head of Ukrainian government was traveling to Gdansk, and the head of Polish government was present there. And that there is a room for cooperation. I guess in the view of the Ukraine's EU accession, of course, Poland will try to protect its interests of its farmers. But it was the same when Poland was acceding the EU. Like Germans, French, Spanish were also protecting their farmers, and it was all part of negotiations. So I guess from the practical side, we can find solutions. As goes to the historical matters, there was also progress over the past years. Ukraine allowed Polish researchers to come to Volyn and to do, I forgot the correct word. They research the places of mass burials, and that's also moves this debate from the political dimension to more historical dimension, as many, I guess, in Ukraine would also like to see it less of a political question, that the political parties in Poland, but I may assume maybe in the future in Ukraine, will use to get support and to switch more to the current realities, to the current threats, and to the common vision of the future.
And Poland was also very steadfast in admitting immigrants, rather, when the war first started. A lot of Ukrainians basically went into Poland, which sort of already showed that relations have definitely been on the rise. My question to you, Anastasiia, has a lot to do with what happens to the millions of basically Ukrainians now living under European Union in the moment that Ukraine joins the Union itself.
So it will be like super positive if after Ukraine will be a part of European Union, that all Ukrainians who are living here, they will be full membered, and then they will be recognized as European people. Yeah, but at the same time, we can see Bulgaria, that they approximately 7 years they were waiting for acceptance for the market. And at the same time, I think that it will be with Ukraine. But also, I see now that we have different groups, or I can divide Ukrainian people in the European Union into two groups, because first group, they are still waiting that the war will stop tomorrow, and then they will come back to Ukraine because they have their life there. They would like to be with Ukraine, and they would like to rebuild or build continually their life. At the same time, we see another group of the people who started their life here. They started from the draft their life, and now they have here business or maybe new life, so they changed. And when we see, when we will go maybe to Ukraine, like to the country, I will say that we need all these people in Ukraine. Why? Because we need to rebuild. Early it was like around 40 million of people, and now maybe it's a half because of the war and because of the immigrants. And I think that it will be depends on the people, and they will come to some decision what they would like to have. They would like to rebuild their country, like Ukraine, their home, and be there with Ukraine, or they would like to stay abroad and continue their life. And I think that it will be divided at the same time, because we still have people who is now coming back to Ukraine, and they now would like to live there and build their life again, like the new life, because they had life before the war, they had life in the European Union, and now they would like to build new life during the war. And I think that it will be changeable.
Yeah.
Depends on the situation.
My question now has to do a lot with what's currently happening in Austria. I have a lot of Ukrainian friends that live here in Vienna, and I also want to ask about the situation in Germany as well. Their blue card is no longer going to be eligible after this year, from my understanding. So a lot of them are applying to jobs, they're trying to get another means of visa. That kind of already shows that there's a bit of hesitancy for the European Union to continue supporting the Ukrainian refugees. Could you speak on that from your respective countries of residence? That would be Germany and Austria. Why is this happening? Or rather, is the sentiment being shared also in Germany for you, Stepan?
If I'm not mistaken, this issue is governed by the EU-wide decision on the extension of the temporary protection status. As far as I know, it was extended for 1 more year. So, yes, from one part, it's understandable that Ukrainians don't have this feeling of security because you never know if every year is going to be extended. On the other part, everyone also understands that as long as war continues, this temporary protection status will be extended. I guess that there are two views on this. Like one is that the better these people are integrated, have jobs, contribute to societies, then that would mean that, well, Ukraine has its own people on influential positions abroad, and that would mean also more support for Ukraine. The other position is that maybe it's bad that they are integrating in those countries because it will be more difficult for them to then go back to Ukraine, and we need people in Ukraine. And it's still a debatable issue. And I don't know, like as of now, as the war continues, the Ukrainians in Europe will still be under temporary protection. I just maybe saw yesterday or day before yesterday, there was a Danish government's decision to stop providing temporary protection for men from 18 to 60, who the position also there is an ongoing debate in Europe that, well, if they come, then they either have to have some different status, go to work directly, or they have to go to Ukraine and do their duties in Ukraine. And I guess there may be more change in this direction. Maybe some countries will take Ukrainian men of war-serving age without reasons that make them exempt from military service from the temporary protection status. And I guess that's something that Ukrainian government would like to see as well. So, but I don't think that anything other than that will happen as regards the status.
And Anastasiia, do you have any comments on this issue as well?
Yes, maybe I would like to add just about the Austria that I think that they are trying to keep here people because they need people for the market. It's the first point. But at the same time, we see that in the European Union now is growing the old generation. And they need these young people who will push and develop social market and at the same time labor market. But also maybe it's more not political speech now, I will say, but it's more about the people that they are staying in the European Union because their life continue and they just need to live now. And if they will just stay and wait for the war when tomorrow it will be stopped, okay, what we will do next, nobody know. And because of this, they started to learn languages, they integrated because they have a family and they need the money. It's of course, everybody needs money for the life. And because of that, I think that people who is still now here, maybe they will have like a double life, living here like they are doing now, and at the same time living in Ukraine, because they have also some part of family in Ukraine. Like for example, I live for 2 countries. I travel all time to Kyiv every 4 or 3 months because my whole family, they are staying in Kyiv. And at the same time, I'm trying to develop here myself, to work. And I think that everybody is doing the same because it's just So it's life, and we need to leave, because if we just wait, what does it next? Then it doesn't work.
Yeah. Could you perhaps speak on the public opinion of both Ukraine towards the EU membership and also the EU overall towards Ukrainian membership? Would you say that it's on the rise? Would you say that they're meeting each other in the middle?
Maybe in the middle, because early I saw that in Austria they don't like Ukrainian, because they said that all refugees, they come with very rich cars, and all rich people come from Ukraine to European Union. But at the same time, I was asking all time, and do you think maybe it's just one thing what they have now? They have just maybe this very rich car, and in Ukraine they don't have nothing. And then the people started to think, yeah, maybe you are true, maybe yes. And at the same time, they changed their mind because of integration of Ukrainian. Now, if we check AMS statistic, I saw that Ukrainian, they have now low position who is getting this social support. Because everybody is trying to get a job, everybody trying to open their business, and I think that now we got this middle, maybe, middle, not the communication, but middle opinion with each other. What does it mean Austria, or what does it mean European Union to Ukrainian people, and what does it mean Ukrainian to the European or to the Austrian?
And how is the situation in Germany compared amongst Ukrainian workers there? Is it the same as here in Austria, would you say, Stepan, from your understanding?
So in general, because there was a survey beginning this year by the European Commission, they were looking into the support of the idea of enlargement in different member states. And I guess for Ukraine, of all candidate countries, Ukraine had the highest support rate. And like, if you take EU in general, 52% of the EU citizens supported the idea of Ukraine joining the EU. And it differs very from a country to country. Like if you take Nordic countries, it's sometimes around like 80-90%. And if you take, I don't know, Czechia or Hungary or Poland, it's quite a bit lower, not a bit, but substantially lower. And if we take Germany, it's close to all EU average. And it also, Germans of all candidate countries support Ukraine's accession most. And if we take also Ukrainian refugees or migrants and the attitude of Germans to them, I guess also in comparison to other migrant groups, Ukrainians are seen in more positive sense. And also we need to mention that the temporary protection status that Ukrainians got is much better what other refugees group get. Like you can come to job market instantly, unlike if you are having a refugee status. So here, I guess, I don't know if it's good or bad, but Ukraine has this privileged position also in European countries. And if we talk about Ukrainians, it's clear we have always overwhelming 70, 80, 90%, depending on the phase of the war, support for EU accession. So it will not change. And
going back to, I guess, the development that is nowadays happening in terms of the opening of the first cluster, Anastasiia, I wanted to ask you what you think of sort of the intersection between martial law, which is where Ukraine is at the moment, versus reforms in the rule of law in Ukraine from the EU. How does that work, realistically speaking?
For example, if we take as example decentralization, then in Ukraine it started developing since 2014, and it works still now. But at the same time, military administration, they should to take this authority to themselves because they need to control financial support. Why? Because, for example, if we take east and west part, now west part of Ukraine is more rich, I can say so, because a lot of migrants in Ukraine, they moved from east part, they moved to west, and now they invest a lot of money, they opened again their business and so on. And at the same time, if we take a east part of Ukraine, it's destroyed, building, infrastructure, everything. And because of that, all our administration, they need to have this support more than all in other regions. And at the same time, I think that Ukraine still doing this development in the law, in legislation, in decentralization, and it doesn't matter if we have this martial law, because if we take also last year, all people went to the demonstration, but it's prohibited. But at the same time,
martial law,
yes, because of the martial law. But at the same time, we still, I think that I will just say that for Ukrainian, we don't have stop. And it doesn't matter that now we have martial law, it works, but at the same time, we don't have stop to don't have development or improvement in different area.
Mm-hmm. Would you also share the same sentiment, Stepan?
Well, martial law is also law. So, I guess with rule of law, there is still a lot of work to do. Although I would note that if we take a look at, for example, anti-corruption infrastructure in Ukraine, that's something very unique. I guess only Romania has one anti-corruption bureau that's similar to Ukraine. All the other European countries don't have anything like this. So maybe if it gonna work properly, and if we are gonna really implement all requirements of the negotiations in terms of rule of law, like Ukraine has all the chances to be like just ideal country in this regard. In the end, even in comparison, like if we take either newer EU members or even older EU members. And that there is obviously a will of the people that Ukraine becomes a country of the rule of law. And as we've seen with July last year, when the government goes in the opposite direction, there is a clashback. So I'm pretty optimistic, I would say.
And I guess to wrap things up, I would like to go back to what you said earlier in the discussion of, this is no longer about who has the most leverage. Ukraine just has much of a say on the table than that the European Union has. Would you say then, in a sense, how would you sell the membership bid to the European Union if you were now basically at the European Commission? What would your speech be in a very short way to the both of you? Yeah, let's see if it's convincing enough, I guess.
I think maybe the first what I want to say that Ukraine now war experienced country. And this is what you need now for European Union, because if you want to defend yourself, and of course you have not, but at the same time we can see what's happened at the USA. They change every day their opinion, and because of that, we think that now we are a good opportunity for you to create a new union for defense of the whole European Union at the same Ukraine. And of course, agriculture, maybe new technology, innovation, we can bring this everything also.
Well, I can make a small advertisement. Just last Friday, there was a publication at the website of my think tank, actually identifying areas where Ukraine can bring added value to the EU as a potential EU member state. So I invite everyone to read this, and
we will link it to the description.
Thank you. Yeah. And there, of course, the main argument is security one. It's a question to Europeans whom they trust more, the United States, like in the run of 5-10 years, or Ukraine, and Ukraine's military industry, which produces much quicker and better than what Europeans can do. Our know-how in security and military sphere, I would say, know-how in resilience and how Ukrainian society what Ukrainian society actually learns through this 4 years of war, and I guess this innovation, this spirit of finding the ways when you think there are no ways, something that may motivate Europe to be great. Also, as we identified in the document, Ukraine can be an asset for EU in agriculture as the big producers that can increase the influence of the EU in countries of the global south, like as not everyone likes this term, but like Africa, Middle East, East Asia. Ukraine already plays a very big role for those countries as a food provider. Ukraine has shown a very considerable progress in digitalization, both of its private sector and its governmental sector. It's something that countries, for example, Germany, can also learn from. Ukraine also, we can think of Ukrainians now in Europe as an asset for those countries. When they become EU citizens, well, they will be already capable of integrating into a labor market super quickly. And yeah.
Maybe I would just add that just only one sentence that Ukraine can be like a good and big game changer, because it will be like not a motto but advertisement. If you need updates in the European Union, we can update you. Very easy and very fast.
And hey, not only in terms of software updates, but updates anywhere else, really, in the European architecture. And Stepan, you said something very engaging, I guess. You said Ukrainians manage to find ways even when there's no ways. And I think that the European Union should definitely draw inspiration from that. Thank you guys both for coming and joining me today. I really found this conversation engaging. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sticking to the very end. I hope that you found this conversation engaging and interesting. Please follow us across all of our social media and yeah, stay tuned for more. See you.